In one moment, you're the host of the most watched cable news show in the United States, with millions of fans and a seven-figure salary. The next thing you know, you're nowhere to be found. Fox News only said one cold line to say they were no longer working with Kimberly Guilfoyle. There was no goodbye or explanation. The quiet was too loud for someone whose job depended on being heard. What could be so bad for a network that they would pay more than $4 million to get rid of someone? The shocking truth about Kimberly Guilfoyle's leaving Fox News shows the dark side of media power and how quickly a career can fall apart when the cameras stop running. Before we talk about what really happened at Fox News, you need to know how far Kimberly Guilfoyle had come, because it gets harder to fall as you go up. New York City. In 1969, when she is 11, a little girl loses her mother to leukemia. That sadness stays with her for decades. Kimberly Guilfoyle wasn't born rich. She was shaped by hardship. In a flash, she learned something that most people never learn. Everything you love can be taken away. Her father was Irish and worked in building. Her mother was Puerto Rican and lived a simple life in the Mission District. But when Kimberly's mother died of cancer, she learned that security wasn't real. She would make choices for the rest of her life based on what she learned. She turned her fear into drive and fought her way through law school while most of her friends were deciding what they wanted to be when they grew up. It was her first stage when she went to court. As a lawyer in Los Angeles, and then San Francisco, she learned a rare skill: how to make complicated cases feel like they were about her. She did more than just argue cases. She also told stories that the judges couldn't overlook. But here's where the story goes wrong for most people. They think that her move from practicing law to working in television was a planned move. It's much more interesting to know the truth. When she first went in front of a camera in 2000, she was just trying to make ends meet as a law analyst. Her marriage to Gavin Newsom was ending, and she needed to go in a different way. What no one saw coming was how natural she looked on TV. The way other lawyers talked sounded like they were reading from books, but Kimberly talked like she was talking to a friend. No matter how complicated the case was, she could explain it in a way that even your grandmother could understand, that made people believe her fully. By 2004, she had a regular spot on both parts of court TV. There wasn't any polite law talk going on here. This was TV as blood sport, and Kimberly was born to be a warrior. At the same time, she was passionate about both sides of a case, which would help her in future political fights. But Fox News was the one that really made a difference. She knew this was her chance to make it to the big leagues when they called her in 2006. Her rise at Fox was very fast. In just 5 years, she had won the greatest prize, a highly sought-after spot on the 5. It was a great setting for her skills. She wasn't just giving legal advice anymore. She got involved in hot political arguments and made sharp points about everything from foreign policy to culture. By the middle of the 2010s, Kimberly Guilfoyle had done something that most TV stars can only dream of. She was now needed by everyone. Her pay showed how much she was worth. 85. This is the kind of money that comes with big responsibilities and demands. She was no longer just a host on Fox News. By herself, she was a brand. However, being successful on TV has two sides. People pay more attention to people with more fame. In the case of Kimberly, someone very close to her was keeping a close eye on her. Someone who was going to make everything different. Kimberly Guilfoyle's July 2018 began like any other month. She was at the top of her game when she co-hosted The Five for millions of viewers. Her co-workers looked up to her, and people who disagreed with her politics were afraid of her. After that, something took place. That would be huge news in the media, and the official story doesn't make any sense at all. Fox News put out a message that was shocking and very short. One line telling her that they were no longer together. There was no explanation, no farewell speech, and no thanks for all the years of work. It was very quiet for the woman who had worked for over 10 years to make Fox's afternoon shows huge ratings hits. Anyone who has been paying attention to the news for a while knows that famous people don't leave in this way. There were news stories and opinion pieces when Bill O'Reilly quit Fox, even though he was in bad taste. It was a media circus when Megyn Kelly left for NBC, but Kimberly Guilfoyle just disappeared. The difference was stark and clear. Even though there were scandals, O'Reilly got a section to say goodbye and be recognized for his work. Kelly got messages from people in the public wishing her well. Guilfoyle got a news release from the company that looked like a notice to quit. The formal story was very well put together. Kimberly had decided to quit TV to do something in politics, especially to work on President Trump's 2020 campaign. In writing, it made sense. She had always cared about politics. She knew people in the Republican Party, and working on campaigns gave her the kind of public image she wanted. But this didn't make sense. When, how, and what has happened before? First, it was strange when it happened. It was more than 2 years before the 2020 election in July 2018. Most of the time, big campaign parts don't appear that far in advance. Second, the process had never been done before. Big names like Kimberly don't just disappear overnight from Fox. Third, Fox has never been so eager to lose one of their biggest stars without making a big deal about it. In the past, the network had fought to keep very less important people. It looked like someone else was making the choice because Guilfoyle was so willing to be let go. Within days, the stories began to spread. Insiders in the media started talking about problems within the company. Things that went wrong behind the scenes, but what didn't happen might have been the most important detail. Kimberly had built her career on being vocal, but she didn't say much about her leaving. For someone who had never been afraid of debate, her sudden unwillingness to talk about her leaving was a huge red flag. It got boring for her to post about random things on social media. Her public comments were short and carefully planned out. The speed with which she switched to working in politics was also strange. Within a few weeks, Kimberly was at Trump rallies, raising money for Republican candidates, and doing so much for the campaign that it almost seemed like she was desperate. She was trying to get things done quickly so that no one would have time to ask her questions that would make her feel bad. At the same time, Fox News moved on very quickly. The five kept going without stopping. They didn't show any nostalgic clips or talk about how she helped the network be successful. They also didn't recognize that one of their biggest stars had just disappeared. This erasure was shocking for longtime watchers. They saw Kimberly give her usual emotional speech one day, and then she was nowhere to be found the next. There wasn't any answer, so rumors quickly filled the gap. However, the network didn't offer any clarification. What none of us knew was that in 2000 company boardrooms and law offices, Kimberly was telling a very different story while she was in public and building her new political career. It was this story that would finally come out and show how far Fox News was willing to go to hide certain stories. The real reason why Kimberly Guilfoyle quit was kept secret for 2 years. Behind business deals to keep information secret and carefully managed public relations. In October 2020, The New Yorker published an investigation that broke the carefully constructed story and showed a truth so shocking that it changed everything we thought we knew about her leaving. There was a young woman at the start of the story, whose job as an assistant to one of Fox News's biggest stars seemed like her dream job. What she got instead was a terrible dream that would stick with her for years. A story in The New Yorker said that this assistant had made a private 42-page complaint against Kimberly Guilfoyle in November 2018, which was months after Kimberly had already quit the network. The time was very important. That meant Fox News had been dealing with serious claims made against her while openly saying that she quit on her own free will and with no problems. What was said in that report was shocking in how broad it was and disturbing in how specific it was. According to people who know about the charge, the assistant said that Guilfoyle had abused her at work in a way that went far beyond what would normally be expected of a boss. It wasn't just rude words or crossing the line every once in a while. The accusations made a picture of someone who abused her power to make the workplace hostile in ways that went beyond any reasonable professional norm. The helper said that she often had to work at Guilfoyle's New York apartment while the Fox host showed off her naked body. This made the young woman feel trapped and uncomfortable, but she couldn't leave without risking her job. There were even more disturbing claims that Guilfoyle would show her helper pictures of men's genitalia from men she had These weren't just random views. They were done on purpose to make her feel bad and keep her in line. The assistant also said that Guilfoyle talked non-stop about her sastras life, making her worker listen to graphic details that had nothing to do with work but were meant to show control. It was said in the lawsuit that Guilfoyle made physical demands, which is different from verbal harassment. Sexual harassment and other forms of abuse at work were said to be part of the same pattern of behavior. The complaint said that Guilfoyle told her assistant to sleep with rich and important men, which was basically the same thing as telling her to kill herself to move up in her career. It is said that she made her assistant share rooms on work trips. By doing this, there will be no private or professional boundaries. These weren't one-off events. The accusations showed a pattern of insulting, rude, and inappropriate behavior that made the assistant's job impossible and went against all rules of professional behavior. In this story, what's even scarier is how the helper tried to handle things. She first tried to talk about these problems informally, thinking that a conversation would help solve the issues. She didn't mean to hurt anyone's job. She only wanted to do her job without having to deal with things that no worker should have to deal with. When she tried talking to them informally and failed, she tried working within the system, hoping that Fox News's Human Resources Department could handle the problem in a professional way. Things are said to have gotten worse after the assistant finally decided she had to do something official. The New Yorker said that Guilfoyle tried to get in the way of the investigation, and even tried to pay off the assistant to keep her from telling the lawyers Fox News had hired about certain things. After that, a full and expensive probe was done. Fox News hired an outside law company to handle the case. The lawyers were experts in handling cases of workplace harassment. The public had no idea what was going on during the whole process, which took months. Fox was dealing with serious accusations from within the company, but they kept up the lie that Kimberly's exit was her choice. Fox News reached a deal that was not only important, but also unbelievable. Several news sources say that the network paid the helper more than $4 million to fix the problem. $4 million. Just to give you an idea, that's more than most Americans will ever make in their whole working lives, just to settle one issue at work. This deal wasn't a bother. The amount of money provided says that Fox News took these claims very seriously and wished they would never be made public. Along with the payment, the assistant signed tight confidentiality agreements that said they could never talk about the claims, the investigation, or the settlement. The size of the settlement makes it hard to believe that what Fox News executives thought had happened truly did. Companies don't spend millions of dollars to settle complaints that aren't true. This was money that was paid to keep quiet about accusations that the network clearly thought were so harmful that they were worth spending so much money on. At the same time, Kimberly was starting a whole new job in politics. Her move to work for Trump's campaign wasn't just business, it was also very personal. She was dating Donald Trump Jr., which put her in touch with the most powerful Republicans and gave her a platform that was just as influential and well-known as her TV job. But here's what's really interesting. She had built her name on being direct and opinionated, but she was surprisingly quiet about one subject. Kimberly would talk about almost anything except leaving Fox News in interviews, protests, and other public events. When reporters asked her about her leaving, she gave answers that seemed carefully planned and strangely short. She would talk about wanting to work in politics, being excited about new tasks, and being thankful for her time at Fox, but she never gave any specifics, never explained when she was leaving, and never talked about how abruptly she was leaving.